Hey everybody, welcome to episode 11 of the Dink Tank Podcast. We're trying a little something new. It's still a makeshift set, but I'm hoping it looks pretty good. We're going to keep tinkering. I want to get a sign with Dink Tank on it, but upgrades.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right into it. It's kind of been a slow couple of weeks for news. I know there's been some new paddles that we've been sent. We got some stuff from Diadem as well as an interview. I'm going to put the interview at the end of this podcast, and we're going to touch on the paddles a little bit before then. But just quick PPA recap, a power question that Chris brought up that him and I were discussing, and then a Luzz pickleball controversy that Rafa kind of brought up recently. So we can just jump right into it. I want to summarize what kind of happened this week at the PPA.
Yeah, I mean, there was some good matches. So, I mean, all the Yola people were gone.
Except Deckel, right? And this was in St. George, the Red Rock one, right?
Yep, Red Rock Open. Yeah, so Ben was out. It was weird. I don't know. I guess Annalie, I don't think she played mixed at all.
No,
I don't think she played with someone else. So, but I think Paris and Deckel won mixed, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're both really cool, big personalities. So, I know Deckel missed his flight. So
that's what I was going to bring up. Yeah.
Yeah, Deckel missed his flight, but he got a gold out of it. So,
and now was missing that flight supposed to be going to that event?
I don't know if it was to go to the event or if it was just to go home.
That's what I was going to say, because I saw the flight missed, and I'm like, was that supposed to be him going to the Yola event, and that's why he was there, I wonder?
I don't know.
That's funny.
I really don't know.
That's funny.
I don't know who won women's. I want to say that Paris and Tyra won, but I don't
think so.
I could be wrong. So, Paris won too. And then Annalie won singles. So,
shocking.
Yeah, shocking.
But you want to cover
who won men's?
Yeah.
Diadem and Alshon again.
Yeah. So on a tear. Back together too.
Yeah, back together. They don't miss a beat. They're crazy. I mean, Diadem is, and Alshon right now. They're both just playing out of their mind. I mean, Alshon lost the last 2 weeks playing with Fed, but he made it to the finals.
Yeah.
Both times. So pretty crazy stuff.
It was funny in the post interview of after them winning, the interviewer brought up Daskew's age, which I thought was kind of funny because he is older, hanging around with some of the other guys, and he's like, "No, I'm still good, I'm still going." And I mean, obviously, he's never played better. So it's kind of been cool to see his ascension. One thing I did want to highlight though, in the women's singles, is a local girl made it pretty far.
Yeah, she did. She made it to the quarters. It was Jelena. She's dating one of our good friends, and we play with him a lot.
Yeah.
But we've met her.
Shout out Cody.
Times. She's really cool. Shout out to Cody. But yeah, she made it to the quarters. She beat Gigi Bouchard. She beat someone in the round before that too, who was, I want to say, was up there as well.
Did she end up playing Annalie again, or no?
She played Leah Jansen.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so
she's taken off a game off Annalie in the past before, correct? Or was it
in
doubles?
Mixed? Yeah, in mixed. Yeah, in mixed. Her and another local guy took a game off Ben, and
she's a rising star.
Yeah,
it'll be fun to kind of watch. I want to make sure I saw her tonight at center court, so I was like, I want to make sure we give her a quick little shout out
for sure. And then I think there was a 14-year-old in there too.
I saw something about.
She made it to the quarters as well. I don't remember her name, but
young talent.
She lost to Annalie, so that's not
young talents
not a
popping
bad
up on the PPA. That's one thing I'll give the PPA props. Their junior program is really going to do wonders for the sport going forward. Sure. So. And also just a lot of kids that one of their first sports will be pickleball. So just the talent level is just going to keep going up.
For sure.
So we got to get our dupers up all we can.
Yeah, I know. All the 15-year-olds
literally
coming for us.
So I think that pretty much wraps up St. George. Like I said, not too much to cover. Just want to make sure we went over it and give that shout out. But Chris brought this up. So him and I were texting about 2 weeks ago, and he gave a shout out. So that was much appreciated of our discussion.
Everyone's perception of power is skewed right now. And this came from a conversation I was having with JJ earlier this week. We were texting, and he kind of brought this up, and I was like, oh, this is a good topic. We should talk about this on a podcast.
But he got into the topic that you and I have kind of brought up, which is people's perception of power skewed right now? And I think some points that were brought up, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
It's not necessarily the reviewer's fault or the consumer's fault right now, because paddles like the mod are still legal, even though we know they're not going to be in a few months.
Yeah,
and then you have paddles that didn't pass the new PB Core tests that were already approved before that that might not be approved next year when we go from 0.44 to 0.43. Where power is at right now is, I think, just, it's very subjective, and I think it's going to take a while for us to settle down on what actually is a power paddle again. That's one thing that's been a little bit tricky in my reviews, because a power paddle to me right now, not going off, I've been doing my miles per hours. I'm going to have a video coming out shortly on that, comparing some of the power paddles as of late, kind of showing more they actually rank on some tests that I've done. But it's just simply, play testing. It's like, can I put a ball away? Is my serve, do I feel like I get an advantage on it? My drives, does it seem like it's giving them issues? That's kind of been where I've been judging. Also, another thing that I don't think that gets talked about is weight. Yeah. Because if you make it, look at the Franklin C45 is a perfect example of this. And you could design a paddle even more than this, because I don't think that paddle it hits a lot harder with weight, obviously. Yeah. But every pro weighs up their paddle like crazy. Yeah. So if you design a paddle so low that it passes the PB core test, stock, but all the players are going to let it up or put tungsten on it, that's a different paddle. Yeah. As a lot of people have kind of been seeing with a lot of these paddles coming in super light, like the 008s. I do not really love that paddle stock, but with weight, it's great. Yeah. Some of the Chorus paddles, like the Fire, when that was still around, that needed a little bit of weight as well to bring up the swing weight as well as the stability. And that paddle went from not hitting crazy hard to, as we've been saying for forever, counters of that paddle were unreal, and that's why it now is delisted. So I just think that's another huge thing that these governing bodies are completely missing right now. Yeah. Is obviously there's the issues of core crushing and, actually power testing and testing paddles for degradation, but also customization. Because in golf, this is a big thing. I know the USGA, if you have a movable weight, because you're actually allowed to have the metal bone, which I guess is not actually legal on the Pro Tour. Only on the Pro Tour, you can't have removable weights on the sides. So I know the pro players like Rafa that are using the metal bone or a version of the metal bone, they don't have the weights on it. He just puts lead. Funny to me, because lead's obviously movable too. If a golf club has weights that can shift, they test that driver head or whatever club with every configuration of that weight. Oh, wow. Now they don't throw on the extra lead, but also it speed's a little bit less of an issue in golf. It's slightly different. Versus I think it's a little bit more telling, obviously, with pickleball. But yeah, it's because I remember there was I was sponsored by Wilson Staff for forever, as an amateur. And they had a show on TV called Driver versus Driver, where someone could design a driver and they would make it and mass produce it. And the second season of that show, the driver that won had an issue of where the weight, when it's neutral, it passed. The weight in the heel, it passed. But if you put it all the way out on the toe, it hit too hard. And it's that's, again, I know it's been highlighted a lot in Charles in our Proton interview, which has had some controversy. It's been interesting reading those comments. I'm glad we were able to ask some of those tough questions. Yeah. But one of the things he did bring up is paddle testing is new. We have to give these people a little bit more time, especially to get the data. We're asking them to do a lot of things before they have the data. And also we're asking them to be perfect when the sport is 5 years old in terms of the professional space. I know it's been around longer, but I mean, even less than that. Pickleball really blew up, I'd say, really the last 3 years in terms of the pro scene being a real thing. Obviously, the PPA has been around longer, but we have to give it a little bit more time. And the UPA is even newer than USAP. Yep. So,
hey, they made a rule. You can't have a paddle over 10 ounces. So that's
why I said they have a rule, but the problem is, do they test it at 10 ounces or 9.9? And the answer, I think, is
10
no.
ounces is also crazy.
Yeah, but think of how much the pros are weighing it up.
Not to 10 ounces.
I know.
So it's that's...
But my point is, if it's not even going up to 10, people are complaining about paddles that weigh more than 8.2.
No, I know.
Their pros are 8.5, 8.6 probably.
8.9, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying no one's getting 10. So it's the level of weight will probably also have to come down, because it's maybe you can't go to that 8.9.
Well, you should be able to. The whole thing is you just can't hit harder. It can't hit over that threshold with that weight. So, I don't know. It's an interesting discussion. Little rant that I wanted to kind of bring up, because I do think that's a big issue with testing, and it's been hard to convey.
But like you said, it's going to be a hard thing, because we're not going to know until 25 when those 0.44 paddles are gone too.
And that's why
we don't even know what those paddles are.
And I think there's going to be a lot more that are going to fall off.
The gearbox, the mod we know, and the Ripple that we could throw in there.
For some reason.
The Pro Kinetics and the Fire. But those 3 paddles are what, when you say power paddle, or any of the reviewers say power paddle, everybody's thinking Ripple gearbox mod. And that just has to come down. Like, it has to come down to probably Paddle Tech.
Yeah.
Probably Pro 4. Yeah. I mean, they did tell us that past PB Core. So we can imagine Pro 4 and Paddle Tech is probably going to be the top of power, where if gearbox and mod is in the game, those are probably in the middle.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've seen a lot of people with the Pro 4 either be disappointed or like, oh, the 3S hits harder. It's been very interesting to see those takes because with my testing, they're almost identical. I know with Braden's testing, they're almost identical. And I can't remember John and Chris. I know Chris doesn't do speed testing, but just looking at some of the other databases after I kind of did it, I'm like, okay, this is in line. But it's funny because I think the feel of the paddle.
No, I think it's a big change.
The other thing also is the 3S also probably does heat up a little bit.
Yeah.
So people are playing with a 3S that they've been using for 6+ months to a brand new Pro 4. And they said even at the YOLA event that we were at in Vegas that the foam's going to loosen up. It's not breaking, but it's going to loosen up, which is going to give a little more flexion. So the ball will hit harder.
There's some shots with the Pro 4 that I don't think are coming off as hard as, I mean, clearly not comparing to a mod because that's ridiculous. But the 3S, I would say, might hit it, but also the speed test, like you said.
And like I said, just the paddles are so much more newer.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think with more testing, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
But again, mine, at least just in terms of serves, my miles per hours were virtually identical.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, I'll have more in a video on that coming shortly. I just need to actually edit it.
Yeah.
And then the last thing we wanted to touch upon was a company called Luzz, Luzz Pickleball. And they sent over a couple paddles, and the one that I had hit the most was the Pro Series 2. And we talked about this briefly when we got it. I was like, I think it's a Gen 2 thermoform paddle. It's solid. It's all right. It's cheap. I think these paddles are around $100 to $120.
Yeah.
And there might be a code with that as well. And I was like, it's good. It's nothing crazy. Definitely took inspiration with the gradient edge guard and design even of the Yolas. But that's where we get into some other paddles. And Rafa, Pickleball Tech Dude, just did a video on this, and I've got some thoughts because it's very confusing to me with the fact that they apparently sent this power paddle, which is literally a mod ripoff, virtually the same, and he actually said things were slightly improved. I ironically had not hit this paddle that much. I had been hitting the Pro Series 2 more, and they apparently paid for UPAA certification.
Yeah, which doesn't make
any
sense because no pros walking out with the Luzz.
No.
So I really don't get that. I definitely want to talk to Rafa more and figure out what he's found. But yeah, paying UPA doesn't make much sense to certify it through them when they're only focusing on the pro game right now.
Keyword right now. Like I said, I will hold my ground. They're trying to get in the other game. No. The reason why I bring it up is because I've talked to some other reviewers about this, and in John's original interview with Connor said he brought it up
for sure.
And so I'm just saying, I'm not against that either.
In the original plan, I mean, I think they said 26.
Yeah, they did.
I think they said 2025.
Oh, I know.
No, you can't use unless it's UPA pros, and then 26 PPA you can't use.
I just don't want to walk around it because
that is what
I think that's what they said, and I think that's still what they want to do, and I think they've just been walking it back slightly because of the optics, and they're trying to get some other testing done. And hey, they've implemented degradation testing before USAP. Like they're making good strides. I'd like to see it be, not for profit soon, but that's beside the point. But anyways, yeah, just an interesting situation with this company. Obviously it's a great paddle, but the other thing I think Rafa actually followed up on that video that he heard back is I don't think it ever got actually approved.
Yeah, that was...
Or there was something around it. It was on the website.
It was on the website, and then they pulled it from the website and said they never sent in that paddle.
Basically sounds like they did a bait and switch if anything happened, which a lot of the other reviewers were also joking about that they not only have copied Yola in terms of some of the design, obviously making a mod, but they also might have literally pulled a bait and switch just like they did with the original Gen 3s, allegedly, of course. Yeah. Just wanted to highlight that because that was some weird news that kind of came up this week. That I've had these paddles for a bit, and again, they're really solid. Just didn't get a hit with the power one as much. So wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, definitely interesting.
Now let's get into the fun new stuff that has been floating around for a while. And that's the new Diadem Bluecore paddles.
Yeah. They sent over the Pro 14 and the Max 16.
Yep.
So these will come in 3 thicknesses and 3 shapes, which
little controversy around,
but this is the wide body shape. No controversy around that. Short handle, wide body. And then this is the elongated. I think it's 16.4, which is technically not elongated, but some people are measuring it 16.3. But
yeah,
to me, looking at it as someone who plays with elongated, it looks like an elongated paddle. It's really close.
I played like 6 games with it tonight. I usually am one that'll always complain about reach. Like that was one of my issues with, I really wanted to like that, the Vapor 11.624, because I love that shape, just that handle length. It's like I could notice it. This one didn't.
And this has the long handle.
And I think that's what it is. I think just the longer handle makes up for the loss in phase.
Then there's a third shape, which is the standard. That one is going to be another elongated paddle with a 5.1 inch handle. So it's going to be like the Carbon 3.
Gotcha.
So it'll be like kind of pretty much the same lineup as Carbons, 2 elongateds and a wide body.
The other thing that was interesting too was the fact that when we opened this, one of them were green, which is interesting. So I'm curious to see if they're going to do any other colors. The only color on this one, which is all black, is blue, the blue for Bluecore, and it's a little bit in the grip as well. Overall, I like the design of the paddle. The green, like I said, is a little bit unique, but I really like this all black one. It's also interesting because everyone seems to have gotten different thicknesses. I think everyone got these 2 shapes, but the thicknesses are kind of all over the place. Lucky for me, the Pro 14 is probably the one that you and I both would gravitated towards.
Yeah.
First thoughts are, I like it. I like it a lot. Obviously, we're in the era of foam cores. So we have the True Foam Genesis, you have the 008s, and you got this.
Yeah.
In terms of for all foam paddles.
For right now.
We know of a couple others that are coming. I guess we could say that. Yeah, Proton. Charles leaked the...
Yeah, Charles already said it.
Yeah, Charles already said it. So we can say
Proton's making a foam core.
I think they're going to have to change the name, though. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with that, because there's another paddle coming out with the same name. That's also a power paddle. No, it's not a foam. Anyways, back on topic. But with this paddle, my main thoughts were the True Foam, I could play it stock. Mm-hmm. The 008s, we both did not like stock. This one falls somewhere in between of, I thought it hit pretty hard. Sweet spot was decent. Definitely am going to want to put my weight on the sides just to add a little bit more stability to that. Overall, it's pretty solid. The only interesting thing they did was the edge guard.
Yeah.
And I texted you this when I first got them, and I'm like it's molded, and there's a line literally down the side of where it's like creased. Another thing too is tried putting weight on this, doesn't quite stick. But you and I always do usually electrical tape.
Yeah.
So if you end up getting this paddle, or you have another paddle that has those issues, just put it on and then put the electrical tape over. It does add weight, but electrical tape is super light in comparison to normal edgeguard tape. We usually like doing that because we like it to match the edgeguard color. So an all black paddle will be really easy. But I'm very optimistic about this. Diadem hasn't really done much in a while. I was a huge fan of the Diadem 18K paddle.
That's the silver one, right?
Yeah, you actually had demoed that from All About Tennis before I was reviewing, but it was one of the first ones I play tested.
Yeah.
And I never reviewed it, but I loved that paddle. And the reason is I was still using a Power Air from Selkirk. And I thought going from the Power Air to that, they translated pretty well in terms of that just had a better sweet spot. I don't think it might be thermoformed. I don't remember fully.
I believe that one is.
Okay, I think so. So it had a better sweet spot, had an edge guard, a little better stability, great spin that lasts, unlike Their traditional spray-on grit. Obviously, now they're introducing Infinigrit to more of their lineup.
Yeah.
Those Luxes are on the way. If you guys haven't heard that, Selkirk's coming out with a new Lux that's going to hit harder, and it's going to have Infinigrit, which was introduced from the Lab 007. So I'm very excited for those. But the Diadem 18K, we have a friend that still uses that. I think it's a great paddle. The other thing too is the Icon, which is an edgeless paddle. Not my favorite paddle, but I know a lot of people that love this. But the thing that I will give Diadem major props for on this is the edge guard, because you can replace it.
Yeah.
They give you, I think, 2 extra pieces. And that's always one of the biggest issues with edge guards or edgeless paddles, is that you chip them up super easily. And they've got this like little bolt system, and it's plastic, just peels off, puts right back on. It does make the paddle heavy, but that's one thing I'm like, why isn't more people doing something around that? Obviously, you have a Reload that's, taking on the face sheet, but you and I really value the way our paddles look. So that's one thing I really appreciated on the Icon.
The Icon was my first paddle, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
The original one.
Gotcha.
3 times ago.
Dang,
I think
that's
they've
crazy.
released 3 versions of that.
And then obviously they had their other Warrior, which is funny because when I was looking to buy my first expensive paddle, because I was using a Ben Johns paddle.
Yep.
I believe. Yeah, I was using a Ben Johns paddle at the time from Franklin. And I was in between the Power Air and the Diadem Warrior. Loved the designs of the Warrior, the edge guard. I think they had one with the American flag. I was like, these are really cool. I think I ended up going with Power Air just because of the weight, though, originally, because the swing weight on that was like high 120s. But absolutely great paddle, sold extremely well. I know it had some issues, but this is the new Warrior, and it's got their all foam core. So it'll be interesting to play test this. Diadem also did send over what the core looks like. So there's a little block. I'll probably put some B-roll over this of a little closer zoomed in. But this is what literally is the core.
Indestructible.
And yeah, they are very much encouraging us to drive our car over it, do whatever we want with it.
It's pretty solid for sure. There's not much.
I also believe, and I think this is brought up in the interview that I'll put at the end of this video, is I believe the foam is being sourced from the same place that Selkirk is using on their 008s, which is interesting because this paddle doesn't feel the same.
Yeah.
And I don't believe it has any cutouts either. I could be wrong, but I don't think it does. Unlike the True Foam, which has some cutouts, and also like a new Proton paddle that's coming up that has some, which changes the feel of the paddle. But overall, like I said, first initial thoughts, I'm impressed with this. I'm very optimistic. I'm excited to get more of the shapes, but I do think this will probably be you and I's favorite going forward.
No, I think so. I think it'll be fun.
But yeah, so I interviewed Evan from Diadem. That'll be at the end. So if you want to jump ahead to listen more on the Bluecore, you can do that. But we've got a couple other paddles that I think we want to jump into.
Yeah. Got the Gherkin Nightshade. I was really excited about this paddle. I think the design's very loud, clearly. I played with it a little bit. I haven't gotten to play a ton of games with it. I haven't been playing too much lately in general. Honestly, I had my golf tournament, so I took like 5 days off. Busy, and I really liked it. One gripe is that the sweet spot's so small.
It's not good.
It's so small. The sweet spot is very small, but if you hit the sweet spot,
it's great.
It feels awesome. It has a great feel. It's got good pop. It's got good power. It was one of those ones where I was like, and I don't like hybrids, but I was like, I bet the hybrid feels really good. Just because it has that wider sweet spot. The sweet spot's not, it's long and it's very narrow.
It reminds me of the Pickleball Apes Pulse E.
Yeah.
Which that one's an ultra elongated paddle, so it makes sense why that one's like that.
So it's just, but it's also, it's not light, but it's like 1/16 swing weight for an elongated, which is not.
And a twist weight of 6.1 and static weight of 7.9 ounces.
Yeah. And that's the thing. The twist weight's not super low.
No, it's interesting.
It's weird. But yeah, the sweet spot was very narrow.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you hit it,
feels great.
Feels really good. I like the paddle a lot.
I had very similar thoughts of, it's funny, when I first brought this paddle out to Horizon Park, playing outside, beautiful day, I was hitting in warm-ups, and I'm like, this paddle is freaking amazing.
Yeah.
I was like, it is awesome. Resets, the power felt good, sweet spot felt good. And then I played a game. Now, this was stock.
Yeah.
I played a game.
I haven't put weight on mine yet.
And that's when I noticed, I'm like, oh, it doesn't feel stable. Like it really twists in the hands when you mishit it. But then I added some weight and it definitely improved it. And I am enjoying this paddle quite a bit. This sweet spot, I just wish it was a little bit wider.
Yeah.
That's my only gripe. I think, like I said, just like you said, it was really funny though. And it's the reason why I slid this up here is, Gherkin provided this hat in the box, which I have absolutely been loving because I just think it's hilarious and I like that it's clean. But I was wearing this at the park and someone goes, that hat's awesome. That paddle is atrocious though. So design is not for everybody.
Yeah.
I am a sucker for purple. So I actually quite like it. My only thing with design is I wish they didn't do the Nightshade
so many times
on the perimeter.
Yeah,
if they had just done the Gherkin logo with Nightshade there and then up top and down low, I think it would be great. And I like the gradient edge guard. I know some people
I like that too.
are not big fans of it, but I think it's a great looking paddle. I wish little too much branding. But again, someone noticed it. Yeah. So it's good marketing. This was not the only thing they sent though. They did also send the most unique trainer paddle I think I've ever seen. What's that called?
It's all you.
Gherkin sent the G-Spot trainer, which I hate saying. It's so funny though. Also extremely thick handle.
Yeah.
And I think the purpose was, if I remember correctly, is to mimic the weight of a real paddle.
Yeah,
closer.
I think they are going to change it a little bit though.
But this thing is meaty. Like this thing is so thick.
Yeah, they said they were going to lower the weight a little bit. They'll probably get a thinner handle at it.
But I'm a huge fan of trainer paddles. Every tournament I go to, I always make sure I warm up with one. Golf, I was used to things like this as well. It's something I've always liked in my training routine. So I've been a huge fan. Eventually, I'm going to do a big trainer paddle video. I've already done some stuff in the past. I just never posted. But this was absolutely hilarious. This is great marketing. Also, amazing design. Like just clean. This is what I wish they did for the Nightshade.
Yeah.
Very cool. Like I said, I wanted to highlight it because it's definitely funny and unique.
For sure.
And I know that's probably what they were going for, and they won because we're talking about it, and it feels good too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't have a trainer paddle, like I said, everyone I think should have one in the bag. It's just good to drill with. Now, if you're someone who doesn't drill, ignore everything I just said. But if you're someone who does drill and train, it's a good thing to have. Not necessarily this one. I like this one, but if you're not, you want a little more PG rated paddle, probably not this one. Oh, also wanted to highlight, I don't think we brought it out, but the hybrid of the Nightshade, the swing weight is 113, twist weight is 6.2, and the static weight is 7.8.
Yeah.
So 4 or 5 swing weight points lower, twist weight's about the same, and static weight's about the same as well, just a little bit lower. Just wanted to highlight that though, because that's still in the garage. Forgot to bring that out. The next one, I'm dropping a review this week, so I don't want to say too much, but the Unmarked Paddle from Mark Pickleball. This thing's awesome. This is really good. So our friend Steven, STS Pickleball, who's also from where we are, he's been hyping this paddle up for a while.
Yeah.
I understand why. It's really good. Another gradient edge guard. Our friend Lynn, I've been letting her use this because she's been trying to replace her original Carbon 1X for forever. And she came from tennis, so she likes heavier paddles. And I'm like, this is a good option. It's 16 millimeters, has a swing weight around 119, twist weight 6.2, static weight 8.1. Feels heavier though. That's the only thing I want to say. Out of swing weights at 119, I think it's a little head heavier.
Yeah, I think that
it plays heavier than it is, which, like I said, for us isn't a huge issue. I did notice it a little bit at the kitchen. But for the most part, like when you connect, you hit this thing hits hard. Yeah. I was getting some great spin with this as well.
Yeah. On their website too, I think there's a range. I think it's 118 to 122 maybe. So, I mean, it can get heavy, but I think I liked it. I loved it actually. I got it in and I played immediately. Like I had like 3 drill sessions in a row where I pretty much only used it and I really enjoyed it. But I also kind of went through like 2 weeks of like being done with Gen 3 paddles.
Yeah.
Where I was like, I can't do it anymore. And I played with probably 3 or 4 Gen 2 paddles. And this one, I was just like, every shot I hit, like they weren't flying out. They were all going in. I was getting great spin, like you said. Yeah. It's just overall just a really solid paddle. It's not like crazy at anything, but it's pretty good at everything.
And the other thing with this too is the price. I think it's like mid 170s, 180-ish.
Yeah,
and I think there's a code as well. So very competitive price. So if you like elongated paddles and you like a head heavy paddle, this is a good option, especially for the price. It's PB Core 0.43 certified. They have it on there. I know it took a while. It was not showing up on the USAP website. So I was getting a little worried. I'm like, is there something going on? But it showed up. So free game now to talk about it. But this is definitely a paddle that's going to fly under the radar. I'm hoping a lot of people cover this because it deserves.
Well, actually, it sold out.
It did it really?
Yeah. I just forgot about that. It sold out
for them.
I don't know how many units they had, but it sold out.
Good for them.
Their first batch sold out. So I'm sure those.
Like I said, well deserving. It's like it's just such a good paddle. The other thing I want to bring up though, while this is still up here, because I think it's a good comparison, is I've still been loving the smoke. I know it has. You just can't. This is your 11.624 power paddle.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening with it. I can't seem to dial it in.
Like literally, this is exactly what I went through with the 11.624 paddle. I love it. It's just, I couldn't quite dial it in. Yeah. That seems like everything you've texted me is exactly the same thing.
But it's weird because I on paper, it's like, this thing's great.
Yeah, it's everything.
And also, these pretty much the same paddle.
They're both wide cell cores, 10 millimeters, just like the Paddle Techs.
Yep.
They're both thermoformed, unlike the Paddle Techs. They're both sub 230. This one's sub 200. The handle length on the smoke, I think, is 5.6 versus 5.5.
Yep.
And they're both elongated at 16.5.
Yeah.
So it's like more budget-friendly power paddles. Not quite the 11.624 with discount code. This one would be right in between. That's why I'm going to do I want to do kind of a budget power with high-end power across the board video. So that should be coming out soon.
Yeah.
But the 11.624, the Unmarked, and the smoke, I think I really want to do a video comparing the three of them. I've been liking the maneuverability of that one a little bit more, which is so funny because the swing weight's only 1 or 2 points lower, but that one feels so much faster to me in the hands. And that's why I think the balance point's a bigger factor.
Yeah.
And that leads me to something else where I want to talk about this a little bit more next week. Another side rant for me. A lot of reviewers don't use elongated. I think outside of Isaac, I don't know really anybody.
That's it. Yeah.
And we both.
Kyle was using it, but now he's on
yes, he likes the Shogun. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's on hybrid now, so.
Yeah, and I love hybrids too. Wide bodies, it needs to have a longer handle or just needs to have the right weighting. There's a couple I've really liked. I really like the Hyper from Gearbox.
Yeah, I like the True Foam.
Pulse V, I liked True Foam too. So there are some. With that being said, this coming in at like 118, 117 on the smoke, everyone's complaining this is heavy. The Yola Pro 4, the True Foam Genesis 1 or 3 was heavier. That was brought up.
Heavier, yeah.
But even the 1, this, and so pretty much any other elongated paddle.
Elongated is pretty standard at 120.
That's what I'm saying. It's
120 is like...
The smoke, I just want to defend it a little bit here because it's not heavy for elongated. That's one thing I think people are missing. They're saying, oh, it's heavy, but it's heavy in the context of wide body standard and hybrid.
It's heavy because it came out as only one shape.
Yeah.
And it's elongated.
Exactly.
But if there was a hybrid smoke, then it would be 115 probably.
Which might be happening. But anyways, that's just one thing I kind of wanted to bring up again because I've been seeing a lot of people talk about that. And I'm like, I think that's a little unfair for a paddle that only comes out as elongated.
Yeah.
Because as a whole, people are like, look at the stats. And it's like, okay, in the context for elongated, it's right in line. And not only that too, I looked at Braden's database, which has way more paddles than my little database that I just have in my Excel spreadsheet. It's the 75th percentile for swing weight. And that's including wide bodies and hybrids. So it's like there's just so many more paddles that are heavier. So I think that was a little unfair, but all in all, really enjoying both of these paddles, like a lot. And the Unmarked from Marked Pickleball, weird naming, definitely a paddle that should get a lot of praise.
Yeah.
So, all right. Next one is a paddle company that hasn't released something in a while. That's Revolin Pickleball.
Yeah.
Their paddles are made 100% in the USA one thing that was interesting that I found when I opened this is I haven't unwrapped it, so I haven't seen if it's fully molded. I'd assume so because the handle's 3D printed.
Yeah,
which
cool.
I thought was really interesting. But they have a new surface type on this. They sent some samples over. We'll talk a little bit more about this in the future. But I just want to highlight this. It comes in 2 shapes. This one's the elongated. And the stats on this are swing weight of 115, twist weight of 5.6, and a static weight of 8 ounces.
Yeah.
And it's definitely an all-court paddle.
Yeah. On their website, they also have, there's a bunch of different options of like, you can order a lighter version where it's like, especially with the hybrid, there was like a light, a average, and then like a heavy one.
I know they're really big on customization.
So they're really big on customization. So I was trying to pull all the stats, and it was like pretty much get whatever you want.
But yeah, definitely a really cool paddle. I'm gonna be spending a little more time with it.
Yeah,
I'll definitely have the material that they sent us, and I might be doing a review on this. But I just wanted to highlight this because I know a lot of people have been complaining about Chinese-made paddles. I get it. So if you're looking for a USA made option, it's pretty solid. And like I said, falls all court, had really good control, had good spin. I actually hit my my favorite ATP shot tonight.
There you go.
Around. So granted, it's new, but I've been playing with it for a week. So yeah, thanks Revolin. Definitely looking forward to spending some more time with this. And yeah. And the last thing we have today is actually a pair of shoes. So I've been wearing the Winner's Edge shoes. They actually sent me a black and a white pair, which I've really been loving. But this is actually from another company, which I have not worn any of their shoes. So this just got sent over to me. And when I saw what they were, I was like, oh, this is really cool. And there's a reason why. But these are the new Head pickleball shoes with BOA, which is a like without laces design, which is really cool. And I know some people are really big fans of Head pickleball shoes, but basically, if you're not a big fan of laces, you just tighten this on the side and you pull it out to loosen it. So it's really easy to put on and off. I am really familiar with this because we had a couple pair of shoes in college from FootJoy. And I remember my swim coach, even growing up, he always would use this exact design in his FootJoys. Shout out Scott Frisch. He's in Palm Springs now. And also shout out UNLV Golf for providing me these shoes my freshman year. But yeah, so same thing. Just like I said, it's on the heel here. Pops out, pops in, tightens. So just a really cool like technology. I know it's used across multiple industries, but I just want to kind of bring those up because I'm like, I've used that for years.
Yeah.
And awesome. I'm very intrigued because Head makes some really good shoes. So I'm really happy they sent these over and kind of start testing this. So I'll have some more thoughts on this in the weeks to come, but just wanted to kind of highlight this because I thought this is really cool because I hadn't seen that in the BOA Technology in a pickleball shoe. So I think they look pretty clean too.
Yeah, no, I think they do too. I haven't seen them yet.
It's really grippy on the bottom.
It's awesome. Shout out to Chris Carson, right?
Yeah, literally. Thanks, Chris. So that wraps up this unboxing of the Head pickleball shoe with the BOA Technology. Be on the lookout. I think these are releasing maybe this week. As I mentioned previously, I did interview Evan over at Diadem. It was a virtual interview. We dive into Diacon as well as just kind of Diadem as a brand. And of course, we touched upon the Blucore paddles that we just recently got. Just forewarning, I did think that we were going to have these paddles a lot sooner. So some of the information was a little bit vague at times. He did give some breadcrumbs, did go on a little bit to the development of the paddle. I did plan to have released this already, but I wanted to have the paddles before then. So I hope you guys enjoy, and thank you guys for watching.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Evan, for joining me. I know, as I mentioned before we started recording, that we wanted to do this before Diacon, but Diacon has happened. So I just kind of wanted to jump into that. Obviously, you as a co-founder, how did it go this year?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, first of all. And yeah, Diacon was, an amazing event, as it usually is, because it's an event where we just bring in our friends, our partners, our distributors, our retailers, and we kind of have one big party, showcasing, of course, what we have coming that year, a little bit of what we did the previous year, but it's just a lot of fun. It's an opportunity for us to meet people face to face that maybe we haven't seen in a while. It's an opportunity to kind of share our story with them, for them to then share that story with customers and ambassadors and partners around the world. So at the end of the day, like I said, it's a big party. We have great food, drinks. It was sponsored by Rocca Vodka, which is a cool vodka company. So you're getting a lot of people drinking, a lot of people having fun. We have our keynote speech and presentation by Corbin Gapsky, which is our Southwest partner and our rep out there in all of the Southwest. So he does a great job. He's done it now his third year. And he really just tells, like I said, the story of what Diadem is, as well as the new product launching, which we can dive into a little bit. But then this year was really fun. We did a breakout session where we really dove into detail on 3 of the key products. And so people that were interested were actually wearing a headset because it's loud in there. There were 750 people. They were wearing a headset while we kind of had our own live podcast going on. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I was going to say, just from social media wise, I think from that keynote presentation, I think I saw the new court shoes got announced, obviously the new paddle with your new technology, which we'll get into, as well as just some really fun thing. I think I saw some people like drawing. There was like art, obviously tons of food, tons of drink. Yeah. I think I saw open play. Like I said, just looks like a big party. And I think I've heard it described as, obviously it's just a big celebration of Diadem sports as a whole. Cause I know you guys launched originally, I believe in 2015 with tennis, correct? And then in 2019, you guys got into the pickleball space.
Yeah. And so I would say you're 99% right. I would do the caveat of it's a celebration really of racket sports. Of course, everything is with Diadem and stuff. We're not bringing in other brands or anything like that, but we have a lot of people that really aren't, a big part of our brand, but they want to get into pickleball or they want to get into tennis. So they come. So like one of the big things that we're announcing are a lot of our new facilities that are under, some phase of construction or signing a lease or whatever part they're in now of the process. So a big part of us is teaching people to play pickleball. And we do that around the world with our partners in Malaysia and Japan and Europe. So that was a big kind of flag we planted. But yes, in general, we're mixing art, we're mixing fun, we're mixing open play the next day. We visited the Fort, which is the 43-court facility in Fort Lauderdale. So it's just a celebration, I think, of racket sports is the best way to say it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's definitely something. Hopefully next year I can make it down for and see in person.
100%.
Because I got into my pickleball kind of around the time everyone else did, around 2020. My mom just was inviting me out to the court. She's like, I see everybody doing this. I just want to go out and hit. We had no idea how to keep score. So like I said, just kind of the evolution the last couple of years. And like I said, just kind of celebrating racket sports in general. I played ping pong prior. That was kind of my only racket sport background. Little bit of tennis, but mostly just ping pong. I was a golfer growing up. So country club sports with tennis and that, and now pickleball being implemented. So it was a great fit. And like I said, I've just loved so many aspects of the game, and just racket sports are really unique in the fact of obviously the longevity, as well as just with pickleball, the social aspect, which is really cool. Like I said, to kind of have that big celebration.
Yeah. And that's what it is. It's a social event and everybody involved gets it. And, we're really happy and we love our partners. We love our customers. And so it's kind of a celebration. And we want to keep making it bigger and bigger. We want more customers and end users coming because it's mostly, like I said, kind of our partners. And so hopefully in the future, we can continue to make it bigger and bigger.
Awesome. And before we jump into some of the products and new technology, one question I wanted to ask, just because Diadem's been around for a bit and you guys have kind of seen the sport evolve.
Yeah.
Like I said, from Diadem's perspective and also just from your perspective, seeing pickleball, how much has it changed in the last, obviously, couple years? And what do you think have been some of the biggest leaps in innovation that have been successful, that are really good for pickleball, and maybe some of the maybe not so good things that we've seen happening in pickleball going forward?
Yeah, I think the way that it's changed overall is a lot of money has poured into the sport. And money pouring into anything can be very good, or it could also, lead to problems. And I think there's definitely been some problems that have led to it. For us, from our perspective, having 2,000 brands is a problem. I think that there's just too much out there, almost too many options. We want options, of course. I never even want exclusivity in any place that we go. We want options. We want our brand put up against other brands and let people and the consumer decide. But there's a lot of copycat brands. It's just too easy for someone to, go on Alibaba or respond to emails. I get junk emails daily, like, we can make a paddle for you, and I think a lot of people saw the opportunity, a very low barrier to entry, and gave it a shot. I think there's still a little bit of chaos, of course, in the pro and the USAP and UPA. There's definitely, internationally, it's even more chaos, right? What's happening in every country and every region that we're in. So, I think the money pouring in has started to lead to that, but it's also, I think good things will come out of that. Obviously, awareness. I think players, facilities opening, so there's courts and there's coaches that are able to make a living, and you're able to grow the sport that way. And I think it'll just take time. I think 5, 10, 20 years. I always, tell like this anecdote, basically, where it's like, when I grew up playing tennis, I started playing at 5, whatever, competitive probably by 10. I was being taught by a great player in my area, and he was probably 55 years old at the time. And so I'm being taught by someone that's played for 40 years. For sure. He went to West Point. He played it in semi-pro. He was taught by somebody who played for 50 years. So the amount of knowledge that was passed on to me, and then I taught, and I played college, and I played semi-pro, and in pickleball, you might be learning from somebody who picked up the sport themselves 6 months ago with no sports background. And so there's a lot of almost misinformation, or just not enough knowledge being passed down yet. And I think the more people playing, the more money being put in, the more facilities, the more federations around the world, the quicker it'll kind of turn into this very well-defined understanding of what a pickleball player should be like, how they should train, how they should, act on the court, or what kind of paddles is good for them, or what sort of surface they should be playing, or anything like that. We don't know it enough yet. And so the biggest change, to answer your question directly, is that like learning process over the last few years, to where when we started, there was no consistency across the nation, from brand perspective, from coaching perspective, from tournament perspective. It was just kind of, everyone was just forming their own cells. And now it's definitely connected, and there is some sort of standard. It's just, we're not really sure what that standard is yet, I would say. And it's been fun to be a part of it. I think, I don't know how much you know about the Vice that we launched at our first Diacon, but an EVA foam filled completely.
See a ton of those at my local courts, especially when that first launched.
Yeah, not a conforming or USAP approved paddle, but we never said it was. We have a big X on it, and I think that definitely opened the door for some brands to really continue to push the envelope. It was going to be us that pushed that envelope of legality, and we kind of decided, especially based on the feedback we got from it, based on what we've seen, based on the people that are our core customer, that we wanted to make sure that we were in line with what we felt the sport, should be going into the future. And I think what that is a limited amount of power, right? A power that has some upper threshold, whatever that is, we'll agree to, but there is some threshold, and that's kind of what we decided to do. But we definitely opened the door. I feel like, I'm sure other brands feel like they did as well, and they might have come out with some of that stuff at the same time. But I think what we can agree on in our end from Diadem is we want to have some sort of power limitation, and we'll agree to whatever that is.
Yeah. Power has definitely obviously been a hot topic for the last probably year and a half, basically since those original Yola Gen 3s came out to the mass market, and obviously was a huge hit. And then it just seems like it's been an arms race to power ever since then. I'm in the boat of, like I said, I like power, but it definitely needs a cap. I think the game has evolved. In a recent interview, actually, with Zane Navratil that we just did in Tucson, Graham and I, the topic of big serves versus power, and I thought, because that's sometimes those kind of go hand in hand, and I'm like, I'm in the boat of big serves in the pro scene or amateur scene, whatever, aren't an issue. I think that can come down to a skill issue. Now, obviously, power paddles can help with that, but a lot of these pros, I mean, they're not using, like I said, some of these super amped up paddles, and they have wicked serves that most amateurs have never seen. So on that front, I think there's no issue. But then on the paddle manufacturing side, like I said, as you kind of mentioned, there probably needs to be some cap at some point. And like I said, it seems like maybe both organizations are coming to that. We'll see. Probably won't be a super smooth process, but hopefully, like I said, that in the next, year or two, we kind of finally get that barrier and all the brands are kind of on the same page and we don't have the issues we've been having the last year and a half.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it'll be somewhat easy to kind of skirt around that or play that, legal paddle, but then you make some illegal. So there's always going to be a danger there, but I'm also not opposed to, somewhat different rules or different expectations between pro and amateur. In tennis. There isn't that per se, but the rackets that pros are using by and large are different than what they're selling to the average consumer. They demand different specs. They demand super heavy and very low flex usually. So, I think at some point as the gap between pro and amateur grow, and it takes you 10 years to develop your game to where you can play on that pro tour, like it is in tennis where it could be 20 years before you get to that level. I think it'll kind of naturally come as well.
So here's just kind of an off question wise, and we'll see how this goes. But piggybacking off of that, one thing that I have always been so curious to hear people talk about is the weight situation with pro paddles versus obviously stock and what the amateur and consumer gets. Because outside of like Franklin, who I know they made, and maybe I'm mistaking something in their lineup, so I apologize if I am. But Franklin last year with their, I think, tour, just regular tour, not the new C45, super light, super heavy, nothing in between. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I always confused me with the regulations is if you have just a light paddle or say a normal paddle and the pros are throwing that much weight on it, it's a new paddle and it's like, okay, is USAP or now UPA testing it with all that weight? Now, obviously they're testing the pro paddles if it gets challenged or so on. But that's one thing I'm like, you're fundamentally changing the paddle with adding that much weight to it. So it would make more sense to have, like I said, for the pros, their own version that's just heavier stock when most amateurs are never going to put that much lead or tungsten tape on it. And especially now we're seeing a bigger divide, especially in my comment sections of a lot of my reviews, because some of these new paddles coming out are super light. And I was never one of where I liked heavier paddles. Now I would say I err slightly heavy, but nowhere near what most of these pros are using. And I'm kind of noticing this big disconnect in feel. And like I said, the way these paddles are being produced and what the end consumer wants versus what higher level players want. So it's kind of been interesting to see, as you just kind of touched upon, that growing gap, like I said, not even necessarily between pro and, like I said, your average amateur, but even like pro and like 4.5 to then the beginner. So it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out, as you kind of mentioned, as well as seeing, like I said, those testing protocols. I do think I heard in the recent USAP thing that it's like static of like 12 ounces, I think maybe is the limit now. That was something I had heard. If that was the case, I might be incorrect on that. But coming from a golf background, I know shifting weights can fundamentally change the heads of like drivers. And I know of certain products that I was sponsored by in college that moving the sliding weight on a driver to like the toe position, the driver failed, but in like neutral and on the other end, everything else was totally passing. And I'm like, okay, then someone can just also throw more light on top of that and no one's ever going to test it. So it's been this like weird way of kind of skirting the rule, or something I feel like people don't talk about, that has just been kind of intriguing to me, knowing how much weight these pros are adding to those paddles.
Yeah, I mean, that was my whole point. It's easy enough to skirt the rules for people that want to cheat. I mean, for something as simple as you could put tar on the face of your paddle if you're playing in a rec game, and nobody's probably going to notice. So I just think, yes, there needs to be a standard, in my opinion, on both amateur and pro, but maybe they're different. But I also think what I want to talk about, what we launched at Icon with our Blucore, I do think that if the quality of the paddle, specifically the quality of the core, it doesn't have any degradation or just potential to have a collapse that actually has a benefit, and that's what our Blucore does. I think there'll be less of that kind of change throughout the life of the paddle, because even if you don't add weight and you don't put tar on the face of your paddle, right? Like, what happens over the course of 3 to 6 months the paddle is completely different,
Yep.
you know, and we can make a paddle with, you know, like that kind of, you know, floating core and all that stuff that it'll pass any test. But, you know, what happens whether just regular use or even, you know, maybe somebody manipulating it as well.
The famous
So,
lacrosse ball.
yeah. So there's so much going on. I think in the end, it goes back to also golf and tennis where there's been cheaters, no doubt.
Yep.
But you know, you hope that the integrity of the game, you want to win doing things at a fair and level playing field and not want to win just for the sake of winning. You know, like I don't know. Some people are different. They're built a little different. I don't want to win unless I truly win. I'll know in my heart that I didn't win if I didn't win, you know, without, I mean, I'm making line calls in tennis and pro matches. I mean, I could have called that ball out and I'd have been on to the next round and I would have made a little bit more money, but then like, what's the point, you know? So yeah, so I would love to talk about Bluecore and about how we think that can really help this part of the game as well.
I said perfect transition. Yeah. So obviously it's been teased a little bit on some podcasts after Diacon happened, and we're seeing the rise of foam cores. But what is Diadem doing with their Bluecore that, like I said, is going to make you guys stand out and is just what's getting you guys excited about this new technology?
Well, yeah, and I do believe that, you know, we try not to say things like the future of pickleball and that, you know, just these words that everybody uses. We try to make sure we don't say words that everyone uses, but I truly believe foam is where the sport is going to go, because honeycomb, to me, was just a bridge between wood and whatever was next. You know, I don't think honeycomb is the best material. I think it was the easiest and most readily available material. You can get honeycomb at probably Home Depot, and you could build your own paddles, and that's what people did. So I think foam enables us to create a more durable, a more functional paddle. It's going to not have the breakdown in the honeycomb. You're not going to have delamination. You're not going to have core crush. You're not going to have dead spots. It's a solid structure. I have a little piece right here where we cut it. I don't know how well that'll show up on video, but it's incredibly lightweight. So it's actually in most thicknesses, it's lighter than honeycomb. But it gives you that consistent feel from the center all the way to the edge. It also has a better dwell time. And so it enables us to kind of have a better performing paddle. At the same time, what we announced at Diacon and Bluecore, it's not a paddle. This is just the technology. We will launch a paddle and a series of paddles the rest of the year, the soonest coming this spring. And inside of that line, there's going to be a bunch of different variations, whether you want a power or a poppy paddle, or you want a control paddle, and we can change the densities. We can change the thickness, obviously, the shape, obviously. And so we can create pretty much whatever we want. But what it enables us to do, to your exact question, is enables us to offer a lifetime warranty on our paddles. So not only do we believe that it's going to last you as long as you want it to, in essence, that you will decide when you want a new paddle, whether it's a new color or a new style or a new brand comes out with a paddle, and you won't be forced because your paddle falls apart. But I think it'll enable the consumer to use that paddle at the same feel and the same characteristics during the life of the paddle. So it's not changing, you know, break-in period and then the break period where the paddle literally breaks, and maybe you can still use it because it's hot now, or maybe you can't use it at all because it's completely fallen apart. So that's what we're trying to fix. We see that as a pretty big problem in the industry. I think some of it again is done for benefit, and some of it is done just because their paddles don't last, whether it was made in a garage in Tennessee or it was made in China. It doesn't matter.
That's the one very intriguing thing when I compare pickleball to almost any other sport, and obviously Diadem being big in tennis as well. You'll have one of the better perspectives on this. Is it's crazy how normalized it is to buy a new paddle every 3 months in pickleball versus tennis. It's most of the pros I know are using the same racket for a long time, or just like I said, in general, a lot of higher end players, it's you buy your racket, you just replace the strings. Now, whether we get to that in pickleball where there's actually something to be replaceable, I know companies like Reload have done that very briefly. we'll see. I think though, solving the core issue sounds awesome and really intriguing with this Blucore technology. I think that's probably the first big step, because your paddle shouldn't last only 3 months. And part of me is like, okay, is this just actually how it is? Or are some of these smaller companies obviously capitalizing on this, the fact that they can sell more paddles?
Yeah, and a lot going on inside of that. So one, I do think that compared to tennis right now, it is expected that you replace your paddle a little bit more, because the technology and the innovation is just skyrocketing, right?
Yep.
I mean, what it was 3 years ago compared to what it is now is completely different. If you're using a 3-year-old paddle, I mean, you're completely in the wrong sport right now.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, 3 years ago, tennis racket compared to now, there's not a whole lot of difference. I mean, people are upgrading their rackets because they want what maybe a pro is using, or their rackets wore out because they restrung it so many times, or they just want a new color. You know, the tech sometimes isn't really big enough to make that change within, 5-10 years even. And I think that the average use of a racket nowadays is something like 10 years. The average consumer keeps a racket for 10 years, which is crazy in the pickleball world.
Yeah.
I do think that the upgrades or the changes of the paddles, because your paddle has either fundamentally changed or literally broken, that's what we want to avoid. We believe that should not be the case. I don't want people to stop wanting to upgrade their paddles, because there's a ton of innovation still happening over the next 5 years, until I think the market finds its sweet spot, what the core should be, what the face should be, what the size should be. We just don't know it yet, and everyone's just trying different stuff. But I do think that the consumer should decide when they upgrade, not because their paddle fell apart. And we've been very liberal in replacing paddles, even if it's not really an issue with the paddle, and it's more of just a lot of wear. I mean, 6 months for some people could be an insane amount of hours playing pickleball. You know what I mean? The 6 months is not equal for everybody, but we want people to have a great experience using our paddles. And so one of the reasons why we did this in the Blucore is we wanted to really have that stamp of, this is a lifetime warranty. Any issue you have, with the core of the paddle, we will replace it. We will make sure you're made whole, and you won't have to worry about that when you spend the money on our paddle. And I really don't think anything is going to happen, because this is such a durable material.
That's awesome. Like I said, durability is something that everyone in the pickleball space, I think, has been wanting. And even though there's a bunch of pickleball tech nerds out there that just absolutely love buying, the newest thing every couple months, because I definitely think that consumer exists, to where obviously durability just doesn't matter to that person. For this sport to grow and to achieve, obviously, its end goals of being a lot larger than it currently is on the pro scene, the amateur side, continuing to see that growth be sustainable, durability is going to have to be a big factor. So I'm really happy to see, like I said, companies like Diadem really, investing in that part of the game.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's been an investment. It's been a long process, just like all the other brands that are trying to innovate. But besides the durability, you're getting what I believe, and I've been playing quite a bit with a few different paddles that we're going to be launching. I mean, I think the playability is, 95% similar to a honeycomb, with that 5% being better, better dwell time. I feel like I can put the ball where I want it, which again, when we're limiting power, I think that's the focus. I think that's what people are going to want. If they want to drop right at the person's, right hip or wherever it is, they want to feel comfortable they can get there. Not, okay, the two were good, and then the third one, why did that one shoot really far away? Oh, because maybe the honeycomb was a little bit damaged right there, or there was a little delam happening. So having that ultimate, control over what you want was still easy access to power. And then, of course, a big sweet spot, right? I mean, and I think the sweet spot just goes back to issues in the honeycomb. If you pull apart your paddle, you'll see some of the honeycomb is always going to get damaged during construction. It could get damaged over the use or whatever it is. And that's probably leading to smaller sweet spots and more inconsistent shots.
I guess my last question kind of on that is, do we have a release dates or how many paddles we're coming out with at launch for this Blucore?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do, but I can't really release that exactly yet. There's a lot of reasons. I mean, both of our international partners are partners here. So I will say with our first launch, it's gonna be a lot. We're gonna have 9 SKUs with our first line of paddles, and all of our paddles in 2025 of the high performance. All the new variations or new additions will all feature Blucore because we're going 100% behind the Blucore and moving away from honeycomb.
Well, really excited to see those Blucore paddles in person. Really excited to start play testing those. I'm sure those will be a big hit. Thank you so much for joining me today, Evan, and hopefully I can be joining you guys next year at Diacon.
100%. You're invited. Thank you.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.